Berlin, 1955. In a locked room inside KGB headquarters, a colonel reads a report for the second time, because the first time, he didn't believe it. Somewhere beneath the streets of East Berlin, American and British intelligence have dug a tunnel, half a kilometer long, reinforced, air-conditioned, wired to tap directly into Soviet military communication lines. For almost a year, Washington and London have been listening to everything: troop movements, encrypted cable traffic, the private conversations of Soviet command in Germany. And here is what makes the colonel set the report down and light a cigarette. Moscow has known about this tunnel since before the first shovel of dirt was moved. They let it happen anyway. This is the story of a spy so valuable that an entire nation was willing to let its enemies steal its secrets, just to protect him a little longer. This is the story of Operation Gold and the man who made sure it never mattered. We'll walk through how a tunnel under a divided city came to exist at all, how it worked exactly as its builders hoped, and why almost none of that mattered nearly as much as anyone on the Western side believed at the time. By the early 1950s, Berlin was not really one city. It was two cities occupying the same address. A western half propped up by American, British, and French garrisons, and an eastern half absorbed into the Soviet sphere, both separated by little more than checkpoints and mutual suspicion. For Western intelligence, Berlin was the single richest listening post in the world. Soviet military and political communications for all of East Germany ran through underground cable lines beneath the city, cables that, if tapped, would offer something almost no human spy ever could: a direct, unfiltered feed into Soviet military planning. The problem was simple. Those cables ran under Soviet-controlled territory. Getting to them meant digging a tunnel from the American sector, under the border, into the Soviet sector, undetected, and left running for as long as possible. The CIA and Britain's MI6 had done something similar in Vienna a few years earlier, tapping Soviet lines with less risk and enormous success. Berlin would be the same idea at a much larger scale and much closer to a fully armed Soviet garrison. They called it Operation Gold. The British called their side of it Operation Stopwatch. Construction began in 1954. Nearly 600 meters of tunnel, built in sections, disguised behind a fake radar station on the American side. Almost no one on either side was supposed to know it existed. The tunnel took nearly a year to build. American and British engineers worked in total secrecy, hauling out hundreds of tons of soil disguised as construction waste from the fake radar site above. When it was finished, technicians spliced directly into three major Soviet and East German cable lines, and the tunnel began doing exactly what it was built to do. For almost 11 months, Western intelligence agencies recorded something in the range of 40,000 hours of Soviet and East German telephone and telegraph traffic. On paper, it was one of the most successful signals intelligence operations of the entire Cold War. But there was something the men running the operation did not know. Months before construction even began, a British intelligence officer named George Blake sat in a meeting in London where the Berlin Tunnel Plan was discussed in detail. Blake was MI6. He was also, secretly, working for the KGB, and he reported everything he heard back to Moscow almost immediately. Which meant that from the very beginning, Soviet intelligence knew a tunnel was coming. They knew roughly where. They knew what it was for. And they chose, deliberately, to do nothing that would expose it. For years afterward, the CIA and MI6 debated internally just how much of what the tunnel captured had been compromised, and how much had been genuine. Most historians today believe a significant portion of the intelligence gathered was, in fact, real and valuable. George Blake was finally exposed in 1961 through an unrelated Polish intelligence defector, not through the tunnel itself. He was sentenced to 42 years in a British prison before famously escaping in 1966 and living out the rest of his life in the Soviet Union, later Russia, until his death in 2020. The Berlin Tunnel remains one of the strangest episodes of the entire Cold War. A reminder that in intelligence work, the story you're told about who fooled whom is very often still being written by the side that fooled you.
A quick note: if you're still here, you are exactly the audience this channel was created for. Liking this video and subscribing really helps it reach more people like you.